ask yourself, are you enjoying what you're doing? And if the answer is no, well, it's time for you to move on. We all have choices in life. And when I say choices, you will find people who say, I cannot. The other set of people who will say, how can I? So my advice to people would be, think of how can I instead of I can't.
Welcome to another episode of the peopleHum interview series. I'm your host Divya Rao, and let's begin with a quick introduction of peopleHum. peopleHum is an end-to-end, one-view integrated human capital management automation platform, the winner of the 2019 Global Cody Award for HCM that is specifically built for crafted employee experiences and the future of work. We run the peopleHum blog and the video channel, which receives upwards of 200,000 visitors a year and publish around 2 interviews with well-known names globally every month. And now for our guest. Jain is the founder of Sequel and Society of Design Thinking Professionals. He's a mentor and speaker and also a member of the Forbes Coaches Council. He's the author of the bestseller Design Thinking for Startups. Jimmy has close to 24 years of experience distributed across 10 years in manufacturing, strategic sourcing, sales and marketing, and 14 plus years as an entrepreneur in the domain of building people capabilities and consulting across multiple industries. Welcome, Jimmy. We're extremely thrilled to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here today.
The pleasure is all ours.
I must say you're very generous and kind with words.
Thank you so much. All right. So, Jimmy, I just want to ask you, of course, you've had a very exciting journey this far. So can you tell our audience about how you came to be the founder of Sequel and Society of Design Thinking Professionals?
Well, typically what happens is whenever we start working or whenever we are working, what typically happens is either we get fit into the mold or we keep asking ourselves, am I enjoying what I'm doing?
Right.
So while I started my career in manufacturing, but after spending about 2.5 years in manufacturing, I realized that I was not made for manufacturing for a very simple reason that I wanted to travel, but my job was not giving me that opportunity. I wanted to meet people, see new places, but the nature of that particular job in manufacturing was such that I was supposed to visit the same plant, the same 4 walls. Beyond a point, I realized that maybe, time for me to shift. So from manufacturing, moved into sales and marketing. And I started working for Mahindra and Mahindra in the automotive sector, managing dealers in the sales function. I was enjoying it to the T. I get to travel, I get to meet people. So every day was a new day. And as we speak, I must say that today is also the 75th Founders Day for Mahindras. So I credit whatever I have today to M&M, to Mahindra and Mahindra. So I just expressing my gratitude. Suddenly I remember that today is 2nd October. Yeah. So while I was handling my dealers across the country, I realized that what I really love doing is standing in front of people and talking. That was one, I would say, a tipping point which told me, Jimmy, you must explore this. And as I continued my journey, I realized that there is something called as your soul and there is something called as your role. Now, when I say soul, I mean who you are, who really enjoying doing what you do. Does it give you satisfaction, right? And your role is what is expected from you, whether at work or in your personal life. And I realized that the only thing which can actually help you, or rather help me in my journey, is if my role and my soul are in sync. And I realized that I love what I do now in terms of conducting sessions, training programs, helping people who they can be. And when they achieve their dreams, my dreams gets fulfilled. So that was one of the triggers which made me realize that maybe this is something which I should choose. And while I was moving into the world of learning and development, I joined a company called NIS. That was my training school. And then way back in 2005, Adeco was entering into India. And they had already had a tie-up with peopleHum Consulting. So I joined them, set up their entire training business. And I realized if I can do that for such a large organization, why can't I do something more for myself? So that is how in 2006, I started my entrepreneurial journey. And then I started to wonder why I not started earlier.
That's really, really amazing and extremely inspiring. I'm so glad you found your true calling and you started to tread on that path. This is something which a lot of people, I personally take a lot from that. And I think things just get easier after you find what you really love doing. So that's really great. Also, so Jimmy, moving forward, you're also the author of the bestseller Design Thinking for Startups. Can you tell us how exactly does design thinking help in the survival of startups?
Okay, so before I tell you how design thinking helps startups, you must understand the genesis of this book and how did it came into being, and why design thinking in the first place.
Yeah.
So there are three E's which I believe in: establish, evolve, expand. Now, which one comes first? I have also no idea because it's circular. And I remember I was writing something to help people, because every day I get at least 3 to 4 calls wherein people want to switch over from what they are doing to what they want to do, which means they want to leave their corporate job and want to start something of their own. And unfortunately, 99% do not find that courage to take that one step. So I was wondering, I mean, what can I do? How can I help people, to put them on the right place, or to ensure that they are starting right. And my friend Anil Chikara, he is the founder for the Startup India Foundation. So he called me once. I remember this was sometime in late December or early January 2018, wherein he called me and said, "Jimmy, I know you're writing something. We have our Seaside Startup Summit, a conference, I would say an unconference happening in Goa in March, and I would want you to launch the book there." And I realized that the moment you put the deadline to something, things start to fall in place. So that's how I started writing it, and we launched the book there. Now, how did design thinking, and how can design thinking help startups? Now, what you really need to understand is what we are creating. When I say what we are creating, as in as a startup, what we are creating, are we really fulfilling the needs of the users, or is it my own whims and fancies? As, okay, fine, this is what I think the product will work. So design thinking really puts the user perspectives first, right? Or what I typically call is, instead of just focusing on voice of customer, design thinking helps you to understand the mind of the customer. And if you are able to take care of the mind of the customer, and if you're able to give him what he or she is expecting, customer will always be yours, right? So the book gives a very practical explanation of the concepts of design thinking. And the interesting part is, if you see the book, the latter half of the book is like a workbook. It will compel you to ask to answer a few questions. And if you are very serious as a startup to create a complete blueprint of your idea, or taking care of let's say any product or service you're creating, you want to enhance your market share, you want more people to buy your product or services, answer those questions and you will realize the blueprint is completely ready. So I think that comes from the aspect that when you have done work with your own hands, when you've got your hands dirty and you're a hands-on person, you don't want to give any gyan. You want people to understand the concept and straight away put it into the application. That's what my firm belief is.
Right, that's amazing. I also feel that with design thinking, I feel like if more and more startups begin to leverage the power of this tool, that is design thinking, I think the startup mortality rate would really reduce.
Yes, I think you hit the nail on the head, because as I said, and I've been consulting a lot of startups, not only in India, but in Armenia, and a couple of them in Iran, a couple of them in Turkey. Now, what happens is, if you start anything and everything by keeping your customers into the center of your complete plan, you are bound to succeed. And that's what precisely, in one single word, if I have to talk about design thinking really helps you to do that. And the interesting part is, as I said, design thinking today will not only help you. That's what my personal opinion. There could always be people who will agree to disagree on that, but that's all right. Design thinking is not about just applying things in your personal life, in professional life, but it can really help you in your personal lives as well.
So customer centricity is really key, along with obviously other things that you just mentioned.
Absolutely. As I said, customer centricity is a word which has been, I would say, used and abused a lot in my experience, if I see. However, capturing that VOC is the key. The capturing the and understanding from VOC to MOC, the mind of customer, is something which would be a game changer.
Okay, so Jimmy, moving on, you're also a transformational neuro coach. How can leaders use neuroscience to lead better is something we all are curious to know.
Oh yes, I think a couple of things which corporates were not ready to look at earlier. Quantum physics is one of them. Neuroscience is another, with the kind of findings which you're getting in neuroscience today, because it's all about understanding and undoing a lot of things which we have been taught. Just to give you a simple example, for all the people who are watching this interview, if we just ask the question, what is the opposite of black? The immediate answer would be white. Or for that matter, what is the opposite of male? The immediate answer would be female. But if you see and try and understand, male and female are two separate species. They're two different species. White and black are two just colors. They're not opposite to each other. And one of my favorites is sun rises in the east and sets in the west. Is it a fact? No, it's not a fact. But we have been taught this right from our childhood. Probably we have also passed it on to the next generation. Right? So neuroscience really helps you to understand how can we take care of this conditioning. First of all, understand who you are and who you want to be. For that, a lot of unlearning needs to happen before you start applying neuroscience. That is how I'm able to understand neuroscience. When you talk about design thinking, if I marry neuroscience with that, we're talking about innovation. If you are marred with conditioning, right, even though you think you are innovating, you're not innovating. So that is where neuroscience plays a critical role to understand how your brain functions. And in my opinion, and all the research, what they indicate is all of us have this superpower called brain. This supercomputer we all have as brain. However, it is lying so unutilized. And the interesting part is today with studies, we are able to rewire. We have the capability to rewire our brain. That's the best part. And the moment you start rewiring your brain, that's where the sense of possibility emerge. And that is where my professor, my mentor, Professor Srini Pillai, who's at Harvard Medical School, also a professor at a part-time visiting professor at Harvard Business School, he guided me. How can we start building on this research? And it's so fascinating. If I may take a minute extra on this question, next time, just check with somebody. How do they define the term possibility? And you'll be surprised to note that 80% of them will actually give the definition of probability as possibility. And I'm coming from my research, which I'm doing on possibility. And I did that across the different regions around the world, across different sectors. Most of the people think possibility is a chance. Well, chance is a probability, not a possibility.
Really very, very interesting. I think also neuroscience in a way applied to leadership can definitely create a profound business impact because of all of these things that you just mentioned.
Absolutely. So we don't realize, but if you get into the anatomy of brain, the moment you see something, the moment you hear something, it gets imprinted in your brain, right? And if there's a part of brain called hippocampus. Hippocampus is like the museum of your brain. Like, for example, if I talk about the current scenario, there's a lot of uncertainty around. There's a lot of negativity. The entire mood is pensive. So the usage of neuroscience becomes very, very critical in the current scenario. The best part is each one of us have a choice to visit our museum of hippocampus, and we can make a choice what memories or what things or what artifacts we want brains to have and what are the ones we want brain to flush out. Right? So that becomes extremely critical. And for leaders, it becomes much more complex in today's scenario wherein everything is getting virtual. People are missing that human connect. People are, as I said, a lot of uncertainty, and probably that's where, as a leader, can I be more compassionate? Can I really understand what could be the state of mind for my employee at this point of time? Could really help people to convert this pandemic into a possibility.
Really, really like what you said just now. Jimmy, you've of course had a very, very successful career in the corporate. What would you advise recent graduates who are trying their luck in today's job market?
That's pretty interesting because till the time the pandemic was not there, I used to always tell the first advice was stay away from your home for the first couple of years of your work, because life is the biggest teacher. I remember when I started my career and I was staying away for the first time, I was staying away from home. And in just 7 months, I realized that I can't do it. I have to go back home. Right. So I think I would still say, well, hopefully things will become much better as life moves on with respect to the pandemic. So the first thing is, if you can pick up a job which is away from your firm, be on your own. That's the first thing which I want to tell. The second thing is, there's a lot of uncertainty. I think I have used this term a couple of times in this interview so far, but especially for youngsters who are just passing out, or maybe who are just entering into the corporate world, for them, the degree of uncertainty is very high. Now, let me tell you, and this is to all those people who are feeling uncertain at this point of time. I also feel uncertainty today, which means in your life, the uncertainty is going to remain with you. So make peace with it. Now, when I say make peace with it, accept it. Because there are two things you could do to any situation. One, either you can resist or you can accept. The moment you resist, you're not accepting. And since you're not accepting, you're not thinking of as possible solutions. But the moment you accept, you start to think forward. It's like this. If you're moving in circles, you'll actually come back to the same place. You're not moving up, but the need is to move in the spiral, because that is where you will be able to move up, right? So do not think, so my advice to you then would be, do not think short term, think of the long term, which means don't think of what you're going to gain the next 6 months or next 12 months. Think of what probably will you'll end up gaining in 24 months or maybe 3 years or maybe 5 years time. So think from that perspective. The next thing is, an advice to them would be about assets, about their the aspirations. Now, what are the assets? One thing which I've realized in my life is, the more you learn is the more you earn, which means be a lifelong learner. I'm currently pursuing my doctorate. I'm still learning, right? Because I have realized the more you learn, you realize how little you know, because there is so much of a knowledge all around there, right? So continue to stay invested in knowledge, continue to enhance, because they become your assets. And they are the only appreciating assets. But with the so much of disruption happening across, you need to continuously build onto those assets. And that is what you need to ensure, that you have those aspirations accordingly. If I'm using the old sword, I'm thinking that I'm going to kill all the enemies with that old sword. Well, I'm sorry, you're in a different world altogether. So you need to continuously sharpen your axe, right? And be aware of the market realities, which means your assets, your aspirations, and the market reality. Market reality is nothing but how much people are ready to pay you for the assets you have. So if you're aware of these three things, right, and if you create a blueprint around that, life will become much easier for you to wade in, instead of just thinking, shall I jump or shall I not?
Right, I completely agree. Especially now, as you mentioned and spoke about uncertainty and unpredictable times, these are really unprecedented times. We had no idea with redundancy of profiles, elimination of jobs, but again, there's concurrent creation of possibilities per se, or new opportunities. I think, and as you rightly mentioned, it's very important to keep on learning, continuously learning, upskilling, reskilling. I think that's really very important. So I really agree with that point. So great answer. Yeah.
Just one more thing, which probably the youngster should be aware of and must remember. It's okay to fail. Yeah. So today, I mean, nobody's perfect. I mean, if you ask me, I really like when you said I'm a very successful individual in the corporates. I mean, I don't know whether I was successful or not, but all I did was whatever I wanted to do, I just pursued it. Right. And I have not told you, you only saw my success. I have not told you where all I failed. Yeah. So it's okay to fail, because people say that, you win some, you lose some. No, I don't believe in that. You win some, you learn some. Right? So don't be afraid of failure. It's okay to fail. And that's where, again, I go back into the design thinking. Fail early, right? Fail cheaply in order for you to succeed sooner. So learn early, learn cheaply, so that you can succeed sooner.
Great answer and great advice, Jimmy. So just to sort of wrap this up, I want to ask you, do you have any last sound bites for our audience?
All I would say is, ask yourself, are you enjoying what you're doing? And if the answer is no, well, it's time for you to move on. We all have choices in life. And when I say choices, you will find people who say, I cannot. The other set of people who will say, how can I? So my advice to people would be, think of how can I instead of I can't. right? And you will realize life is an amazing adventure.
Right.
Every day is a new day. You learn something or the other every day.
Amazing. So it's basically how you perceive situations in your life.
Absolutely, absolutely.
That's
It's up
great.
to us. I mean, whether we are in a fixed mindset or whether we're in a growth mindset.
Thank you so much for agreeing to be a part of our Leaders Hum series. I'm sure our audience will greatly benefit from this talk and this discussion. I think they were great insights. Thank you very, very much once again for being a part of our series.
Thank you, thank you, thank you for having me here.